The planet was inhospitable to most species. Fierce winds swept across vast plains of jagged rocks where the sky was perpetually overcast by dark clouds that never seemed to clear. Only the strongest, most dangerous predators roamed the land, beasts that had evolved for millions of years to dominate everything in their path. Among them was the greatest of them all, Dixaran. Dixaran was an apex predator, a massive creature with scales like armor, claws that could slice through metal, and teeth that could tear through anything it encountered. Standing over 10 feet tall, it was a nightmare for every other living being on the planet. Fear of the Dixaran kept the planet's other creatures in submission, and even the most formidable warriors of the native species trembled at its presence. But there was one species that didn't tremble: humans. A lone human, Captain Riley Drace, had been stranded on this hostile world when his starship had been shot down during a covert mission. With only his wits, a few survival tools, and the will to survive, he made his way across the harsh terrain. His mission, now secondary to his own survival, was to make contact with the planet's inhabitants, if they could even be called that, and report back to Earth. Riley had been on countless missions, facing life-threatening dangers, but this world tested him in ways he had never imagined. Every step on the cracked Earth was a battle for survival, and the animals here had no concept of mercy. Yet, in the midst of these challenges, Riley had something the other creatures didn't: ingenuity. One day, as he scouted the landscape, Riley encountered a herd of Zaran. They were hunting, moving in perfect formation as their sharp eyes scanned the surroundings. But Riley wasn't afraid. He knew that if he approached with caution, he might find a way to survive their brutal attention. Using his knowledge of animal behavior and his understanding of their psychology, Riley formulated a plan. He began by observing the Dixaran from a distance, noting their patterns, how they moved, and how they communicated. It didn't take long before he realized that the Dixaran were far more intelligent than they appeared. They relied not just on instinct, but on a complex form of social coordination. It was then that Riley realized the key to controlling these beasts was not through force, but understanding. The Dixaran respected power, but they also responded to dominance in a different way than most predators. It wasn't about violence. It was about establishing an unspoken authority. Riley began to mimic the body language of the Dixaran, adopting the stance and posture of an alpha predator. At first, the Dixaran watched him with caution, but instead of fighting, he walked slowly toward the largest of the herd, a towering male with scarred battle wounds from countless fights. The Dixaran growled in warning, but Riley didn't flinch. He moved deliberately, his movements slow and confident. To the Dixaran's surprise, Riley didn't back down. He stood tall, his eyes never leaving the beasts, sending a message that he was not prey. The Dixaran circled around him, growling and hissing, testing his resolve. But Riley didn't show fear. Instead, he raised his hand, palm outward in a universal gesture of peace. The Dixaran hesitated. In that moment, something shifted. The beast that had been ready to pounce lowered its head in submission. Riley stepped forward, gently placing a hand on the creature's forehead. He spoke softly, his voice steady, calm. "What if we don't need to fight?" he asked, his words almost a whisper, but carrying the weight of his belief. "We can coexist." To his amazement, the Dixaran allowed him to touch its scales. Predator's hot breath slowed, and its growls softened into a low rumble, something closer to contentment than aggression. Riley understood. The Dixaran weren't just creatures of mindless rage. They had the capacity for understanding, for empathy, and perhaps even trust. Over the next several weeks, Riley continued his approach, treating the Dixaran as equals, communicating with them not through violence but through understanding and respect. He used his survival skills to gather food and shared it with the Dixaran, using the act of generosity as a means to build trust. He never raised a weapon against them, nor did he ever make a threatening move. Instead, he focused on the simple principle that had guided humans throughout history: the power of mutual respect. Slowly, the impossible happened. Riley didn't tame the Dixaran through force. He tamed them through understanding. The once terrifying apex predators began to follow him, their movements more measured, more controlled. They stopped seeing him as prey and started seeing him as something else. One day, Riley stood at the edge of a cliff, overlooking a vast expanse of the planet. Behind him, a dozen Xerans stood, their massive forms blending with the rocky terrain. The once untamable beasts had become his companions, a testament to humanity's greatest strength, not brute force, but the ability to adapt, to communicate, and to understand. The human had not conquered the Xeran through battle or violence. Instead, he had achieved what no other species on this world had even dared to try. He had tamed an apex predator through the most human of methods: empathy, respect, and patience. When the other species of the planet discovered what had happened, they were stunned. That humans, they had thought, were nothing more than fragile creatures, weak in comparison to the titans of this world. But now, the humans had proven something that no one had expected, that with ingenuity and understanding, even the mightiest predator could be tamed. The word spread quickly. Earth's reputation as the home of the most dangerous species, one that could conquer galaxies and overthrow empires, was now cemented with a new layer of respect. Humanity had proven itself to be more than just a force of war and destruction. It was a force of change, of understanding, and of unprecedented power. And Riley, standing with the Xeran by his side, knew that humanity's greatest strength wasn't its weapons or its armies. It was the ability to reach out and find common ground with the most unlikely of allies. It was humanity's way, and that was why no one could ever underestimate them again.